So, we can start? Yeah? First of all, hello everybody. I'm very, very sorry I don't speak any Portuguese at all. Sorry. I try my best to speak slow enough so that the translation can cope up with translating. I want to introduce myself. Oh, first of all, before I start to talk, thanks a lot to the Campus Party organization for having me here, bringing me down to Brazil, which actually is my first time in Brazil, and I really enjoyed it very much so far. I'm very impressed. The Spaxels that I'm talking about, or going to talk about, are a project, meanwhile a company, a startup company, that has been created by the Ars Electronica in Linz, Austria. And a little bit of a background to the Ars Electronica. That is started in 1979 as a festival for art, technology, and society. And also, after a few years, the Pre-Ars Electronica came to it, which is still the highest donated award for computer arts, or cyber arts, as we call it in Linz. A little bit later, in 1996, the Ars Electronica Center, the building that you have seen, has opened as an exhibition space. And in the same year, the Ars Electronica Future Lab has also started, which is the R&D department of the Ars Electronica. And throughout a lot of happenings, in 2016, the Ars Electronica Spaxels company has been formed. Well, the Ars Electronica has established as a creative hub worldwide, internationally really, and quite, being a platform for innovation. Meanwhile, the Future Lab, where it all began, was founded in 1996. And we do our projects on the principles of scientific exploration, of artistic expression, and always think about the impact to our society, the social impact. It's a very transdisciplinary team at the Future Lab. It's 30 plus members from different nations, from all different fields, as you can read: architects, sociologists, psychologists, software engineers, artists with the traditional education coming from art schools, industrial designers, media planners, you name it. A lot of different disciplines working on the idea of the intersection of art and science, art and technology. The fields of activities are very, very diverse at the Ars Electronica Future Lab. And I want to focus on the new cultural experience that we've named here. And we do all of those, not like for us alone in Linz. We do have a huge bandwidth of collaborators, academic collaborators as well as industrial partners. Our academic partners at CERN, the MIT Media Lab, who was already on stage today, the Queensland University of Brisbane, a lot of different international universities, but our industrial partners are as well as important as our academic circle, because our industrial partners help us to stay sustainable. We finance ourselves in our research activities with the work for our industrial partners. We try to be forerunners, pioneers in different fields, in both in art and in science. And we try to investigate fields in a way that nobody did before. But enough about the Future Lab, the place where Spaxels have been born. Going to talk about the Spaxels and the history of that idea. So what are Spaxels? Spaxels are drones, as you can see here, equipped with LED lights underneath. But it's not about a single drone, it is about a huge swarm of drones, and a swarm that can autonomously fly through the night sky. So rather than a pixel, a picture element, Spaxels are space elements. So creating real three-dimensional objects in front of your eyes. Creating real, virtual, three-dimensional objects in the sky, but they're not fake 3D. It's not like that you use glasses for it. It's really three-dimensional objects. So the one picture point, space point that is further behind is actually really further behind. It's much like 3D printing, but the outcome isn't a static object. The outcome is dynamic and can change throughout the time. So what we do is we are rendering computer graphics into the real space. But let's go back to the beginning and where it all started. We got an invitation to do the Sound Cloud. The Sound Cloud is Europe's biggest outdoor event. And it has been happening since 30 years. And we got invited to do the artistic direction for that show. And we were thinking, you know, that show, there's always like lasers and everything and fireworks of all kinds. We want to do something special. We want to do something totally new, never seen before. And we were thinking on fireflies. Thinking about fireflies, getting a swarm of fireflies controlled via pheromones to float through the sky. It was a great idea. It actually partially worked already. But then we found out that the European fireflies are only flying and lighting in June. The problem was the event is in September. So didn't work at all. We had to go to the next idea. Then we tried pigeons. You know, imagining that this would be the result of a swarm. So we were playing around with pigeons and tried to stick LEDs to their feet and let them fly. But those birds are incredible, crazy, and stupid. They don't really follow any path. They just go up and fly in circles and then disappear. And you can't really design the thing. Even though an artist, Duke Riley, has done this in 2016, 4 years later in New York. But you can kind of see they are just like flying around and do something. So the most easy thing always comes at last. We thought it might be much easier, way easier, to use robots to do the job. Quadcopters. And we purchased a bunch of different quadcopters, hummingbirds, and we let them fly in formation. So the whole thing was that we created a software, a ground control, as we call it, that is in constant communication with every single drone and puts the drone in formation. So all what we do is we press play and then the system runs. until the drones are landing. So once we had achieved this portion successfully, it was about to get lights on it. So we were working on different LED modules and diffusers, as you can see here, which this was the first version of it. Not a very smart version, but still, it lit up at least. With that, we have performed the premiere in Linz 2012. And that video went viral. So within a few weeks, we had like 1 million clicks on that video. But what looks so easy is actually quite a load of work. What's going on is you have a huge team of like 15 people caring about each single drone, laying it out on the ground, doing tests, flight tests with every single drone, that nothing can happen. Because remember, there is no pilot anymore. Our pilot is the software. So we have people sitting at the software, just like controlling the flights in case battery goes off. We can manually catch the drone and land it. And that is parts of the show that we did in this year, 2012. So that was the first LED module. And we were working on different kinds of modules to get it more bright, to get more out of it. Actually, always having the artistic impression in mind. We wanted to really cope with this new media. It is actually a new media. It's not a TV set. It's not a display. It's actually a three-dimensional object creator in dynamic performance. It's very, very hard to grasp the design issues that are coming with that challenge. But coming back to the LED modules, we have tested different diffusers, different landing gear, and just when we were about to have the whole fleet equipped with the new version, Paramount Pictures called. Paramount Pictures called in and said, we want you to do a premiere for a science fiction movie. And we thought, wow, that's cool. We're going to do something like that. And they said, nah, that's not what we want. That's not exactly what we want, because it is all about that movie.
We're gonna do this, we gotta do it now.
Audio, please.
I told you we fit.
I am not sure that qualifies.
The black hats that you could see, these black hats, these are choker cans of each half a liter. and we had to eat 50 half-a-liter chokers. It going wild, you know, it was like all too much. But then finally, next to the Tower Bridge, in 2013, for the premiere of Into Darkness, we've launched the drones. And we were flying the Starfleet logo. And the Starfleet logo, pretty much everybody knows, was just showing up above the city of London. Nobody really knew about it. And they really were freaking out, as you can hear. But then those lights still were a bit too dim, competing with all the huge, you know, lights of a city. So we went to the next stage. Just skip that one. And created a better software for design, allowing us to do more tricky maneuvers. And also we've created a set of tools that would allow us to go into the design very, very carefully of huge swarms or groups of swarms. And we went to Bergen in Norway. A bit more audio, please. And we tried to find new ways of expression equipped with laser and played with laser and the drones. And then finally, the final LED module came in place without a landing gear, just like stands as a landing gear itself and is covered nicely with this design module. And it even shows in the daytime, in the sunlight. And we went with that into further visual experiments that we started here. That was different patterns that we could do. That was more or faster light patterns in the sky. And remember, as I explained at the beginning, this all happens automatically. So somebody presses the button, the drone swarm takes off, does the show, comes down and lands again. So we went into light painting, as you can see here, utilizing those drones for creating all kinds of different imageries, letters, or even the very renowned teapot. Still investigating a bit more of what this new media could do in the world. We were going to Brisbane in Australia, performing at the Robotronica. And we had the formation of a flying kangaroo in the sky. Bit more audio. On the stage that you don't see is the most important didgeridoo player from Australia. and he was performing to the drones in real time. And that was a very well-known band from Australia, the 7-Bit Heroes. And we did all kinds of different visualizations. At this time we were 30 drones in the sky, 50 at the very beginning. So trying to realize all kind of, stacked settings to it. We then started to work on the idea of that media to be utilized for an entire new paradigm. It's the augmentation of a city with buildings that are not existing yet. So flying the form of, in this example, a bridge or a building that is created out of Spaxels. Why is this important? I think this would give us an entirely new approach towards public architecture. The citizens of an entire city could see the real architecture embedded in the real space, in the real city. And the citizens could even vote for different versions without having to look on a mobile phone or without going into the World Wide Web, just being there at the place where it happens. Further on, we tried to integrate more of visual expressions into the drones show. So like one approach here was in 2013, this was having the drones together with video mapping on a giant building. This is incorporated in a performance, a performative show on stage with dancers and musicians, where the Spaxels kind of played one actor, one role in the entire scenario. That was the show where we utilized only 7 Spaxels and created the Big Dipper, where the audience was really blown away from the Big Dipper, since it all kind of comes within this star constellations on navigation, on finding new ways to the new world, etc. Very impressive scenario being achieved here. Goes on forever. Jumping to the next, which was important for in several dimensions. First of all, it was Umeå. Umeå in Sweden is above the Nordic polar circle. It's bleeding cold. It was minus 20 degrees. And we had, of course, to test the drones, to test the batteries before we go to Sweden. But where do you find minus 20 degrees? So we went to the biggest butcher shop in Linz, where they had, those cool houses. And we've just moved the beef halves aside, and then we test flew on minus 20 degree the drones and the batteries, which was a bit ugly. It was a bit cold, but finally it worked out great. And this show was the opening of the European Cultural Capital. The European Cultural Capital is a title that Europe gives away every year to a city. And this year it was Umeå. And what you can see here, the ground is a frozen river. So we've started actually on the frozen river. And overnight it got down to minus 30 degrees even. And it was snowing. But nevertheless, for the performance itself, it was very helpful. Because the snow just like helped the drones to appear bigger with all the light reflections that we had in the sky. So minus 20 degrees in February in Umeå. Thank you. Minus 20 degrees in February in Umeå. And like, I think it was exactly 4 weeks later, we were part of the opening of the Islamic Cultural Capital in Sharjah. It's one of the United, what's it called? Emirates, sorry. So Sharjah challenged us in many ways. First of all, of course, it has plus 50 degrees, so a totally different situation and environment. But more than that, it was a piece curated and created by the Sheikh himself. And the Sheikh wrote this piece, this theater piece, about Muhammad and the life of Muhammad. And the Spaxels were the Holy Ghost in the sky. So being the Holy Ghost of Muhammad in the United Emirates, you really don't want to lose one of the drones to fall down or something. We were a little bit nervous about it, but it's for sure one of the biggest stage settings we have been involved so far. And also a very, very nice kind of cultural, how can I say, umbrella from the European Cultural Capital to the Islamic Cultural Capital. And then we were working on getting the drones from the sky down into the room, getting the stars down on Earth, so to speak. But what does that mean when you interact with one drone and all the other swarm is reacting to your input directly? What does that mean in terms of an interface paradigm? You're creating virtual objects that you actually can touch and move through the real space. What does it mean also in terms of communication with the robots? Those single robots are autonomous beings. They need to express their mission somehow to the user. And it all came from that artistic, actually intended question. This question on how do we understand robots? And that became very interesting for the industry. So Mercedes-Benz involved us in a huge research approach that they had, being interested in our experience on interaction with autonomous machines, but also being very interested in our understanding of a swarm as an interactive environment. And we've worked about 4 years with Mercedes, and the outcome was this. This is the FO15, the first autonomous car by Mercedes-Benz. And we were extremely lucky that Mercedes-Benz was running their European premiere of this car in Linz and not in one of the big car shows, what they normally do. They ran it through the city of Linz. And the citizens of Linz had the chance to meet this UFO, this autonomous car, in person. So we drove it through the city. Well, it drove through the city. And citizens could really have hands-on experience with the car itself. And this is very much also the approach of the Ars Electronica Future Lab, and as well the Ars Electronica Spaxels in that respect, to create projects in order to discuss the impact of that technology, the meaning of that future for our society. That was about the time when Intel called and said, could we do about a world record with 100 drones? And we said, sure we can, sure we want, let's do 100. And we had to change a lot. We had to develop further. The first thing is, you cannot, I mean, there's no pilots sitting at the laptops. It's just like controllers. But it's impossible to oversee 100 units as one person. So we had to divide the control job to 4 persons. Each of the person is controlling 25 of them. Controlling means if something goes wrong, the battery goes off, whatever it can be, you have the power to manually click the drone and bring it back to the ground, like having it safely home, safely landing. So that's what it looks like. There is a geofence, where actually 2 of them, to really have no flyaway. So if the geofence is reached, the drones are landing safely. If the second geofence is reached, all motors are turned off. So that means that the drones fall down within the safety circle and doesn't hurt anybody. Thanks God, it never happened up until now, but we're still keeping that tradition of having a huge safety environment. And then the design starts, as it should at least. Does it? It does. And the design approach is still a very analog start. So you think about how to create most outstanding formations, but also you think about starting groups, like having early starters and later starters contributing to the performance, contributing to the formation you want to achieve. And then you have a huge variety of spaces where an audience could be. Like in this example, this is a 500-meter long strip where the audience could stand. So we want to make sure that every single perspective is giving a great result. And this is just done by Google. And then the even more complex thing is, how do you handle 100 drones? You have to come up with technical solutions that can automatically run the swarm out of formation A into a formation B, avoiding collisions. So that's a lot of mathematical algorithms in the back, helping to design a safe and secure swarm. And then at the end, of course, you need to have the LEDs lit up as well. And that was the design, as you can see, for the Intel show. Finally, we have the ground control. That's the software in its latest version that really has a lot of capacity to handle all of the simulations, including wind speeds, GPS errors, in a pre-simulation before you actually go into the show. And you can see on it's a little bit hard to read, but the first row of each of the corners, like here, you could see the voltage of the battery. You could see the maximum speed. You could see the quality of the uplink and the downlink. You could see GPS average errors. That information is being inspected and controlled by the flight controllers during the performance. But again, it's just one button to press play. The entire show runs autonomously. And of course you have to do airfield preparations. Again, laying out the airfield, every single drone, doing your pre-flight checks, going through the entire procedure, changing batteries if necessary, etc., etc. And then when the sun goes down, you're ending up with hopefully this kind of situation, and everything's ready to start. And we started. Off we go, and down we come, all on a single button press. That video of the making of the Drone 100 show went viral as well. Several million people had seen that. But what's less known is that we did not only create a video, we actually did that live in a row of 5 days in Sydney at the Opera. And after that, the big industry took over. Like Intel, they have flown 500 drones. So it's all about more drones and more drones. They've created their own drones, their own fleet, and started off with the 500 about a bit more than half a year ago. And just like a few months later, that was in January, Ehang, a Chinese drone manufacturer, flew 1,000 Spaxels. But what they did, or not do, was really taking care about the visual expression. What's missing here is simply the third dimension. So the 1,000 were laid out as a matrix, and just the lights have been changing. While this was going on, we have been working with NTT, the Nippon Telecom and Telecommunication Company, one of the biggest companies in Japan, on the new language of Spaxels, the new ideas for utilizing the Spaxels for our society in different meanings. How can we create crowd management, traffic management in huge cities? Of course, it's all about Tokyo. And of course, it's all about the Olympic Games in Tokyo 2020. So we're working together with NTT to run shows for the Olympic Games in 2020. And I think because of our approach on working on the artistic expression of the new media, this has happened. Now I need music. Please turn it on. Louder. Louder. Somebody heard that music before? Yeah? Who heard it? Yay! So, well, we're going to perform the Spaxels together with Lady Gaga, Justin Timberlake, Aerosmith, Chili Peppers, etc., in Rio this year. I hope everybody can come. Thanks a lot. I'm supposed to do a selfie with you guys. Yay! Yay! Oh shit. Another one. But now. Yay! That should work, hopefully. And on this side as well, of course, of course. And yay! Thanks, lad.